Broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines in the occupied territory of the Socialist Republic of California, your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate, Tim Donnelly.
Well, that didn't take long. The government is back at it, hard at work, trying to undo your natural inalienable rights. You've got Gavin Newsom's new gun control initiative is being pushed forward by Kamala Harris. She gave him a nice title and summary, something that will fool the vast majority of Californians. We're going to have Firearms Policy Coalition Brandon Combs coming on a little bit later to talk about that. But I don't know if you heard it, but your president, yes, I'm dumping him on you. Here we are getting back to the grind, and he's getting back to the grind, grinding down freedom, grinding down your rights, going after the Second Amendment with a vengeance. And the predictions are that he is going to do something unconstitutional, even though some people are reserving judgment. I am not one of those. Check out what he said about it, because he's trying to bring gun owners to his side, which I don't even think that is a possibility, but he seems to be undeterred.
I've just received back a report from Attorney General Lynch, Director Comey, as well as Deputy Director Brandon, about some of the ideas and initiatives that they think can make a difference. And the good news is that these are not only recommendations that are well within my legal authority and the executive branch, but they're also ones that the overwhelming majority of the American people, including gun owners, support and believe in. So over the next several days, we'll be rolling out these initiatives. We'll be making sure that people have a very clear understanding of what can make a difference and what we can do. And although we have to be very clear that this is not going to solve every violent crime in this country, it's not going to prevent every mass shooting, it's not going to keep every gun out of the hands of a criminal, it will potentially save lives in this country and spare families the pain and the extraordinary loss that they've suffered as a consequence of a firearm being in the hands of the wrong people. I'm also confident that the recommendations that are being made by my team here are ones that are entirely consistent with the Second Amendment and people's lawful right to bear arms.
I bet if you asked the president point blank, without a teleprompter anywhere in sight, to recite the Second Amendment, he couldn't. I bet the vast majority of congressmen and women that if you asked them that same question, they couldn't. If you asked them then to describe what the Second Amendment, what right does it actually protect? Because the Second Amendment does not confer a right. It simply protects a right. It acknowledges a right. It's a natural right. It's a right that exists, which is the right to defend your own life and your freedom from tyranny. And so when the president makes an emotional argument about how he's going to prevent any future loved ones from ever having to experience any kind of pain at the hands of gun violence, which of course is impossible. We all know that. Nobody wants tragedies such as those that have occurred throughout Obama's presidency to occur. But by making it harder, and we're going to keep pounding away on this, by making it harder for the law-abiding to procure a firearm, is not going to make anyone safer. That is just a fact. And no, I guarantee you, when he releases whatever these recommendations are, and we can speculate on them and pontificate on them, but in the end, there are limits to what he can do, and there are limits to what is constitutional and in terms of the separation of powers. And this is where it becomes important that we have a so-called majority opposition party in the Congress who I don't know if they'll stand for anything. They seem to fall for everything, but maybe, just maybe, we can get them to stand up and defend the Second Amendment, because after all, it is in the Constitution that they swore an oath to uphold and protect and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And right now, Obama is a domestic enemy of the Constitution. He hates the Constitution. He hates its restrictions on his power, and he hates the power that is conferred to the ordinary American by the Second Amendment. There is something so awesome and something so threatening to the government to have that. And yes, I know we have people up in Oregon that have lost their minds, that are out there doing an armed takeover of a government building, and the reasons are not very clear to the American public, and I don't think it's going to advance our cause, and I don't think it's going to end well. I've been listening to some of the comments of their leader, this Ammon Bundy, the son of Cliven Bundy, and while I am absolutely, positively sympathetic to anyone who is standing up against the government, there is a time and a place and a way to do it. And we only have, I look at it this way, we only have a few rounds that we can fire. And we have to think like Carlos Halfcock, one shot, one kill, meaning when you are going to exercise something as dramatic as an armed standoff, you damn well better have a clear and convincing reason so the vast majority of Americans can understand and empathize and stand behind you. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. And I'm not saying there aren't some real issues there. We'll get into them a little bit later on. But this gun control thing and Obama continually coming after us, I don't think I can underestimate how much damage this man can do, because you realize we still have another year and about 10 days or 13 days, excuse me, because 1/17, I've got that wrong. 1/20/17 is the day that he finally, hopefully, exits. So what is that? Today's the 4th, so that would be 1 year, 16 days, excuse me, with the Common Core math. And if this is what he's doing on day one, today is the first workday of 2016, and he's making it his business to come after our basic, fundamental, natural rights. And he doesn't give a damn what you think. He doesn't give a damn what the Constitution says. He doesn't care about the separation of powers. He's made that clear time and time and time again. One thing I do like, Donald Trump said, hey, look, pretty soon you won't even be able to get guns. He said this is another step in the way of law-abiding Americans being able to arm themselves. And he has sworn that if he is elected, he will undo Obama's executive order. And by the way, he will have the power to do that. When we come back, we're going to play you a clip with Judge Napolitano sort of analyzing this. We'll be right back after this. We need some kind of song like the shark music in Jaws to describe what is coming for you in 2016. Welcome. Happy New Year. Welcome to the new year. And please hand over your guns. If you look, I don't know if you have tried to buy a gun lately. I bought 2 at the end of last year, and I can tell you that a 2 to 3 hour wait in a gun store is not unusual anymore. And if you think about the massive cost in productivity and in the number of people who are inconvenienced, many of whom give up, by the way, and walk out because they just can't wait anymore, even if the store is operating at a high frequency and they're doing a terrific job like Turner's does all the time, it doesn't matter. Because in the end, if the government legislatively regulates your rights away by making it such a pain in the ass to go and exercise your Second Amendment, then you effectively don't have it. And that's the goal. And by the way, if we get any more Democrats in office, I'm going to go into a story a little bit later on. Hillary has basically said, look, I'm planning to do it using the Supreme Court to completely erase the Second Amendment. You've got these constant assaults, and it doesn't matter whether you're watching a sitcom, whether you're watching a movie, whether you read the newspaper. The culture is so saturated with anti-gun, Second Amendment hatred. Anytime anything happens, they immediately politicize it, turn it into an excuse for yet another infringement. And it's time that we settle in for a long-term battle, because that is exactly what this is going to be. And listen to the discussion that they were having on Fox News. I thought it was rather eye-opening and gave a little bit of hope.
Well, another story we're watching closely this morning, President Obama's executive action on gun control. The president looking to expand background checks on potential gun buyers, among other limitations. The president's going to be meeting with Attorney General Loretta Lynch today before moving ahead with the planned executive action. Joining us now is Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Welcome, Judge. Thank you for being here this morning.
Nice to be with you guys.
Happy New Year to you.
Same to you, Sandra.
So what do you make of this latest push by the president? There are GOP presidential candidates speaking out, as you can imagine. Donald Trump is speaking out. Others are saying this is unconstitutional. Is it?
Well, we don't know exactly what the president's going to do yet. And quite frankly, I don't think the president knows what he's going to do yet, because there's very, very little wiggle room for him. Start out with some basics. An executive order is the president signing a piece of paper telling somebody that works for him in the executive branch of the government how to do their job. So an executive order doesn't tell gun sellers how to sell guns. It tells the Bureau of Tobacco and Firearms how to enforce the laws. So can the president tighten the laws and enforce them a little bit more aggressively if he wants? Yes, but not if the effect of that is to prevent law-abiding people from owning guns. Now, here's what I think he's going to do. If I go to a gun dealer to buy a gun, they have to run a background check of me through I live in New Jersey, through the New Jersey State Police, which in turn accesses information from the FBI. That information that they find out about me is only as good as the database, as what's in there.
Correct.
So if I'm secretly a madman, if I have all kinds of delusional mental issues and it's never been reported anywhere, it's not going to show up in the background check, no matter how aggressive the background check is. It's basic mathematics. If it's not in there in the database, it's not going to come out of the database. So the president is frustrated by that, and understandably so, because occasionally madmen do get guns and get them legally. So he wants to change the rules so that if this gun that I lawfully bought I want to sell to my neighbor and friend right here, I would have to do a background check on him. Now, that has been rejected by the Congress. So it's one thing for the president to tell the Bureau of Tobacco and Firearms how to do their job. It's another thing for him to create a law that Congress has expressly rejected. That is unconstitutional and would be stopped by the courts.
Executive order, say he puts this in place, can it be rescinded immediately by the next president?
Absolutely. An executive order is only valid for as long as it stands. Their executive orders signed by Ronald Reagan and Gerald Ford still in existence because presidents have chosen to follow them. But a new president could invalidate.
They're already saying that. Donald Trump said, quote, "We're not changing the Second Amendment." He said, "I will veto that. I will unsign that so fast."
If he was elected president, he would have the authority to rescind every executive order and any executive order signed by any other.
But some of what these Republicans have done in their own states, Chris Christie, Jeb Bush, it's not unlike what president wants to do in terms of the no-fly list or the terror list. Chris Christie did that in New Jersey, didn't he?
Well,
he said you can't buy
here's the story about the no-fly list. This is a sort of left-wing mantra. If you're not good enough to fly, if you're not safe enough to fly, you're not safe enough to own a gun. That makes no sense whatsoever, because you can be put on the no-fly list by a bureaucrat checking a box on a piece of paper. That is not sufficient to take away a fundamental liberty like the right to protect yourself. Ted Kennedy was on it, exactly. If they want to take away your right to own guns, they have to prosecute you and show a jury what you did wrong, as opposed to a bureaucrat checking a box on a piece of paper. That will never fly, but he may try to do it. I don't think it will be successful. I don't think that the bureaucracy necessary to effectuate that is so extensive. I don't think he could accomplish it in the 13 months he has left in office.
All right. The president going to be meeting with Loretta Lynch later today to discuss his options. Judge, thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
Great stuff. All right.
So you have a president who is pushing ideas that, here's the problem. Forget about the unconstitutionality just for a minute and think about the practical effect. If let's go back to this no-fly list, because I haven't really talked about this. Of course, I'm probably on it somewhere, or have been on it at some point in my life. But the idea that you can be deprived of a fundamental natural right without due process. Once again, that goes back to that same law that they're pushing, the gun confiscation law that they have here in California, where you can be deprived of your Second Amendment rights. You can have your guns confiscated. You can have your home invaded without ever being able to answer or stand up for yourself and defend yourself in a court of law. See, that right there gets to the heart of the civil liberties and the protections. Our Bill of Rights is all about protecting us from the government's overreach, from the government having too much power. And think about it. You're innocent until proven guilty in this country. In other countries, like Europe, you're guilty until you can prove your innocence. That's a scary concept when the state holds all that power and they can deprive you of your freedom and deprive you of your finances. They can deprive you of your legally and lawfully purchased possessions. They can deprive you of your property and ultimately your life. So this is a really big deal, because if this president gets away with narrowing and doing all these things to the Second Amendment that he sounds like he wants to do, and I'm sure he does, because he's warning us. And this is the fight. This is the fight of 2016. And we need to rally around the candidates who get it. And so far, Trump gets it. I'm sure Cruz gets it, and maybe a handful of others. You have no hope on the left-wing side of things. Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton would be more than happy to infringe your Second Amendment rights much further down. Hillary to the point where you have none, and they would just be following in Obama's footsteps. And see, once you have one president who sets a precedent by using the executive order to wage an assault on something as fundamental as the Second Amendment, you will have other presidents follow suit. And God help us all if we get someone like Hillary Clinton in there. It is absolutely incumbent that this year, starting right now, we begin to wage this fight. We'll be talking a lot about that coming up a little bit later on in the show with Brandon Combs, Firearms Policy Coalition. We'll take your calls when we get back. Hey, if you are just joining us, this is the Radio Free California Network. I am still, even in 2016, your host, Tim Donnelly, former California State Assemblyman and radio governor here in the state of California. And I got news for you. This is going to be, I believe, I'm going to make a prediction. This is going to be one of the most significant political years in your lifetime as we see major issues play out on the world stage. You've got on one side Obama and Hillary and their merry band of Marxists who basically think the government is the answer to every problem, who would like to erase our borders, who have no problem with 300,000 more potential Syed Farouks coming in. And when I say Syed Farouk, that's a euphemism for terrorist, or his jihadi bride, Tafshin Malik, but that doesn't quite roll off the tongue quite as well. But in the end, the Democrats don't want to do anything effective about keeping terrorists out of this country, about keeping this country safe, about I mean, you go off to work. Many of you were on a decent, hopefully extended vacation throughout Christmas and New Year's, enjoyed all that time with your family. Now you're back to the grind. You're in the car. You're driving to and from work. You have every reason to expect, in a civilized society, in a free society, in a free country, that you would be safe in your automobile, that you wouldn't be shot by somebody, or you wouldn't be blown up in a terrorist attack, and that you could go to work and feel that same safety and security. Well, I got news for you. Not under the Obama administration, and not under a Hillary Clinton administration, because they don't care. They are not willing to offend anyone to defend American sovereignty. But Donald Trump is. I know you knew this was going to lead somewhere. You got to hear this new ad by Donald Trump. And the guy's, he cracks me up. He says, I don't even know if I need to be spending any money. I feel kind of guilty. I had budgeted like $38 million and I haven't spent any. So he rolled out a couple of ads. Here's one of them that I think could be effective. We're having some issue, but we'll get to that ad here in a second. But look, this he's hard hitting on illegal immigration. He's hard hitting and defends his position on a temporary ban on Muslims coming into this country. By the way, look at what happened in Saudi Arabia. Did you catch that over the weekend? I know, yeah, Saudi Arabia. It's not something that we're all thinking about, but the Iranians burned the Saudi Arabian embassy to the ground. So their embassy in Iran was burned. So they kicked all the Iranian diplomats out of the country and broke off relations. So we're starting to see a break happen in the Muslim world that should give us pause. And we need to pay attention to that, because they're not just after Christians. They're not just after the great Satan of the United States, but anybody who is not Muslim enough is on their list. These fundamentalists, the jihadists, those who have gone so far in their mind, they've committed what I call ideological insanity. And we know that right here in our own community, in the San Bernardino area, the terrorist mosque is a hotbed for a particular sect called Tablighi. Wish Michelle Moons was here. I can't. It rolls right off her tongue, but I'll have to look it up. But anyway, it just trust me. It is a sect of fundamentalists within Islam who are so extreme that even the Muslim Brotherhood is afraid of them. Anyway, here's this clip. This is the guy. I believe you're going to see Donald Trump, if he continues on this pathway. I don't see how he can lose. Here's his ad.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
The politicians can pretend it's something else, but Donald Trump calls it radical Islamic terrorism. That's why he's calling for a temporary shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until we can figure out what's going on. He'll quickly cut the head off ISIS and take their oil. And he'll stop illegal immigration by building a wall on our southern border that Mexico will pay for.
We will make America great again.
That's a great focus. We'll make America great. We will, and he actually believes that America is a great country and worthy of protecting. And I think that's a significant point that can't be overemphasized. When Americans hear that, they realize they're hearing from an American. And what I don't hear is I don't hear the boring Republican political machine with one of their tried and true little gimmicks or one of their little ads that is designed to pander to this group or that group based on their ethnicity or their religion or some other thing that the left-wing media has convinced them they need to pander to. I've always believed you unite people. And you unite people around the idea that we're all Americans. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. It doesn't matter what your religion is. It doesn't matter whether or not you're a Republican or a Democrat. It really doesn't matter anymore. It matters whether you love this country. It matters whether you're willing to stand up and be counted. And, you know, I don't ask much, but the mission of this show is to inform, educate, and engage. And I am, a little bit later on in the show, I'm going to ask you to make a New Year's resolution and engage. But I'm not going to give it away now. You're going to have to keep listening, and we will bring it up a little bit later on in the show, because this is the time where you make new commitments, where you get involved, where you stand up. A little bit of humor in the news. I don't know if you heard the news at the bottom of the hour. Bill Clinton, our good friend Bill Clinton, he's out there in New Hampshire. He's just campaigning for Hillary. And you know what's funny? Bill Clinton has a magic. I have magic about me. I'm Bill Clinton. And when I go out, it's not just the women that love me. The men love me too. And I was out there campaigning for her. I spoke for 38 minutes. And I just had those people just loving Hillary. Now, here's the funny thing. The minute that he goes out on the campaign trail for her, the minute that Hillary, and by the way, Hillary was booed by some rape survivors who are not buying her nonsense and her newfound, I stand up for women who are victims of sexual assault and sexual abuse. And we will play you a clip when we come back from the Paula Jones, who's one of his early victims. But hey, Bill Clinton better get ready. And this is all I'm going to say about this segment. Then I'm going to grab a quick call here. If Bill Cosby is in the news for rape, and Bill Cosby is fair game, then Bill Clinton, you just made yourself a target, and you may live to regret that. Going to the phones here, we got John in North Carolina. John, welcome to the show. Happy New Year, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy New Year to you, too. Hey, knowing what was going to happen here come Monday, January 4, I was at a New Year's Eve party and talking with a young lady, and we got to talking politics, and I was cordial, very nice, and calm. And I said, if at any point you get
so you were on your best behavior.
I was on, exactly. And so we had a nice long conversation. I said something about Hillary, and she says, no, more of a Bernie Sanders, more of a socialist, and we really didn't get into the gun thing. But my question is, was that improper of me? Just like the ad that Jerry Stewart says, there's no more room for timid people. It's time for true patriots to come out. But was I out of place starting that kind of a conversation at a New Year's Eve party?
No, absolutely not. Now, you would have earned my respect.
You got to do it everywhere.
You would have earned my respect and a badge of honor if you got kicked out of the party. Did you get kicked out?
I wish I could say yeah, but my wife was there, so I was kind of on my best behavior, and it was a good neighbor of mine, and I didn't. I was within walking distance, so I guess I could say I kicked myself out, maybe. But all right,
but how did you engage this Bernie Sanders supporter? Did you ask her any questions?
Well, I was just sitting on a stool. It was basically in a garage type setting, outdoor. We had a fire, we had some oysters, this and that and the other thing. And by the way, it's 36 degrees here, so it has cooled down significantly since last week.
Oh, I'm glad to
But
hear
we
you guys are off the golf course.
We're getting our share of foul weather right now here for the next few days. But she basically sat down beside me, and we just, we were chit-chatting. And I said, hey, are you interested in politics? And she said, well, yeah, kind of. And I said, you don't mind if we talk a little bit? I said, and I won't, if I offend you or whatever, just say conversation over, and that's fair enough for me. Because I don't get mad talking about politics. I just don't.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good, because
yeah.
Nothing good comes of that.
No, absolutely not. And if somebody else will start to get mad, I'm like, hey, I'll tell them the conversation's over, because it's not my intent to upset anybody or, make anybody mad at me or anything else. I'm just trying to, if they're interested in a different point of view, I'm just trying to express that. So,
well, here's how I would have. Oh, go ahead. Tell me what you asked her.
Well, I asked her if she was a Hillary fan, and like I said, we really didn't get into the guns conversation, but we did get into the debt and some other things, and what Obama's done over the past 7 years. And she said, bottom line, she's like, I'm more of a Bernie Sanders fan and more of a socialist, and that's when we got it. I said, you'd be willing to redistribute wealth? I said, I don't want anybody taking what I have. I said, it's not like I'm a billionaire. I said, the people we're paying are the middle class. I said, these fat cats out in Hollywood, I don't see them saying, hey, here's $1 million here and $1 million there, all these
what did she say?
Stars. And the basic, the typical answer is like, well, they will. I'm like, well, when? I haven't seen it yet. It's not in the news. No, surely the press would be blabbering it all over if it was a fact, I would think.
Hey, John, I got to give you credit for having the guts. Let me tell you how I would have handled it. I would have asked her. I would have just said, hey, you have a job? And she would have probably said yes. I would have said...
She does. She actually works with the host of the party.
Okay, and I would say, let's say that you make $100,000 a year. Let's just postulate that. How'd you like to give 90,000 of it away and live on 10?
Yeah.
And trust the government will provide for all of your needs. That's Bernie Sanders' plan in a nutshell. But now you've personalized it. You haven't said, don't want to give up what I don't have. You're forcing her, because liberals are the stingiest people on the face of the earth with their money. They're really liberal with other people's money, our money. Anyway, that's just a thought. But hey, you did great, John. I mean, you engaged. What can I say?
Hey, that's right. Well, that was the other thing. As far as the inform, engage, and involve.
Inform, educate, and engage.
Yeah, but there's always next year, so that's very good advice. And hopefully by next year, I'll be smiling like a Chessy cat, because I won't have to worry about him anymore, and we'll have our guy in the office. That was my main point.
Oh God, that'll be a great Christmas. That'll be a great Christmas present. I got to take a break, John. Thanks for the call, and keep up the fight, my friend. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial. Hey, if you want to get a glimpse of what a couple more years of Obama's policies extended by somebody like Hillary Clinton would look like, all you got to do is take a look at what's going on in Germany. And I realize that when you're busy working, trying to keep a family together, a roof over your head, a car running, pay for the ever-increasing cost of gas and the taxes associated with it, and the government's nonstop assault on not only your pocketbook but your rights, then there's the temptation to ignore the rest of the world, but that would be a mistake. And I say that because, you see, Germany is now the canary in the coal mine when it comes to Islamic fundamentalism. Germany's chancellor, Angela Merkel, went out front. She was front and center, became the liberals, leftists' favorite friend when she said, oh, come on in. You're tired. You're poor. You're hungry. You're jihadist. Come on in. We don't care. You are suffering, and you came out of Syria, and it's all our fault, and we're just going to make it all better. Now, she ignored the millions who took to the streets to protest, and I mean millions. And she allowed millions of Muslim migrants, as they like to call them, to come into her country. And remember that statistic, between 10 and 13% of Muslims agree with jihadism. Now, that doesn't mean 10 to 13% are out killing people. I'm not saying that. But whatever the percentage is, I don't want to take that risk. And we do not, absolutely, in this country, we do not have the ability to sort through that many people. And Germany's finding that out. So on New Year's Eve, women were going to the train station. They use public transportation there much more so than we do here. Think New York subways, San Francisco area, BART, everybody rides the train, right? So you're going to go to the train station. It's not like you're, here, sometimes only the homeless seem to go to the train station in the middle of the night. All these people were going there, but there was a gauntlet of young Muslim men who were attacking and assaulting and groping and raping women and knocking them down and ripping their clothes off and unbelievable what was happening. But that is the future of America if we get a Hillary Clinton. We're going to have Brandon Combs, Firearms Policy Coalition, when we return. Stay tuned. Hey, welcome back to the Radio Free California Network. If you are just finding us, I am your host, Tim Donnelly, former California State Assemblyman and radio governor here in the state of California. And we have on the Radio Free California Newsmaker line one of our favorite people because, of course, he fights for none other than the Second Amendment, fundamental. Basically, it's freedom. The Second Amendment, firearms equals freedom. And, of course, I'm talking about none other than Brandon Combs of Firearms Policy Coalition. Brandon, welcome back to the show and Happy New Year.
Hey, Tim, Happy New Year. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah. I'm glad you're getting over that cold you had there, too, because we can't have you down. No sick days this year, my friend. You're involved in a big battle, and I think it's going to be the most significant political year in the lives of many of our listeners, simply because the Second Amendment is under such tremendous assault, and it is the only way that we can ultimately defend our lives and our freedom from tyranny. And you are on the line, as you know, with a number, I'd say a huge percentage of the audience, either personally knew one of the victims or worked with them or was friends of a friend or had some sort of a relationship. And of course, we just buried 14 who were killed by an Islamic jihadist terrorist who was armed with guns that he was able to get in spite of all this gun control.
Well, look, only in California does a jihadist terrorist attack and kill our people on our soil, and our politicians' response to that is for Californians, to pass more gun control laws to make Californians even more at risk of those sorts of attacks. So, it's just insanity at large here. But you're absolutely right. 2016 is going to be the make or break year for gun rights, and I don't mean that in a way that where I say, this is going to be important or, hey, it's really critical. I mean to say that if people that are listening here to your show right now care about the Second Amendment, care about the Constitution, 2016 will be the year that decides its fate forever. And I say that because we have a few things in front of us. The U.S. presidential election, that person, whoever wins, is going to pick a handful of Supreme Court justices, a ton of appellate court and district court judges in the federal court system, set policy in the administrative and regulatory law. Certainly, just like President Obama is doing today, they're going to do something. Is it going to be good for us or bad? But it's going to set the course of an awful lot. And then we've got Gavin Newsom's ballot his ballot initiative here in California. So we're really talking about a make-or-break year for not just a couple of bills or this or that. We're talking about the future of fundamental rights are at stake here in 2016.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I would say freedom has never been so fragile, and firearms and your ability to keep and bear them equals freedom. And so let's talk about two things. One, obviously, you made mention of presidential candidates. Hillary, let's not forget, Hillary made it clear that she favors the complete confiscation of the Second Amendment. She wants to end it via government buybacks the way that they did in Australia. So she favors that kind of an assault on the Second Amendment. And secondly...
It's crazy.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's crazy. I mean, look, it just makes me angry hearing stuff like that. And I hear it every day, and I understand it's always going to be in the news. But I'll tell you what. I mean, we're talking about our Constitution, our way of life. That we are the only place on earth that has a Constitution like this one. And if they're so willing to give it up, I'll tell you what, it's our job, in my opinion, it's our job. Groups like ours and other ones like the National Rifle Association, groups like our job is to make sure that our Constitution lives on for another generation to protect it. Freedom isn't free, but I'll tell you what, with statements like Hillary Clinton's making right now and the way things are going, you got to wonder, how far do they want to push us?
Yeah, I don't care if Hillary Clinton wants to give up her constitutional right to the Second Amendment. I don't care if she wants to run around with Secret Service agents who swear they will only carry pepper spray. That's fine with me. I have no problem with her not being guarded with people with guns, with her not having a fence around her home, not having bulletproof windows in her car. If she wants to put herself out there, go ahead. Go for it. But don't take away my right, because, see, here... the only thing that would have stopped that jihadist, Syed Farouk, and his jihadi bride, Tafshin Malik, would have been somebody concealed carrying who could have produced a firearm and intervened in that moment when the slaughter was taking place. I mean, that's it. There's no time for the cops to get there. We've talked about this over and over and over again. But they're coming after our right to keep and bear arms, and in California, it's very personal, Brandon. I mean, you guys put out at Firearms Policy Coalition, you put out an alert about this ballot initiative. I noticed that he had no trouble getting a favorable title and summary from our Marxist progressive Attorney General, Kamala Harris.
That's right. And you know what? Look, these are two San Francisco liberals. And when I say liberal, I'm not talking about real true liberals. I think, classical liberalism, I think I'm probably one of them. Libertarianism, I think, fits into that category.
No, you and I are classic. You and I are classic liberals. They're leftists.
That's Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom are cut from the same cloth. They're hypocrites. They're not about leftist policies. They're about statist and authoritarian policies. So, yeah, she cut him a favor. Look, we're talking about the greatest threat to California gun rights. What's left of the Second Amendment in California? If this thing passes, I'll tell you right now, I've heard a lot of gun owners say, well, if this thing passes, then the governor will veto it. Well, I got news for you. This is a ballot initiative. It's not a bill. The second thing is, I hear everybody saying, well, if this thing passes, we'll just sue in court. Well, I got news for you, too. We're the ones that are doing all the suing. And I don't know that I'd rely on the courts on all of this stuff. I hate to say it, but you can't win everything in one direction. Sometimes you got to roll up your sleeves and go to work. And
we need to go to work, because this guy, Gavin Newsom, who wants to be your next governor, has raised millions upon millions of dollars already for his campaign. He is out raising all the other comers on the Democrat side, so there's not much chance of us seeing any kind of a moderate running, and he is definitely an extremist. I don't care what you call him. Anybody that thinks you should have to get a background check just in order to have the right to buy ammunition for a gun that you legally and lawfully own, that is your right to own, and all the other nonsensical things that are in this, high-capacity magazines, you got to surrender them to a cop or sell them out of state, basically criminalizing the law-abiding while leaving the criminals completely untouched.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's even bigger and worse than that. And going into the details in a segment's difficult to do. But the reality is look, this is a real threat to rights. You can't say, hey, you know what, Mullen Labe, come and get them. I'll tell you what, they will come and get them. At some point, if you let them continue to take ground, they're going to squeeze you out. And you want to move to another state? Okay, well, that'll only last until this comes there. And if you don't think it's going to the rest of the states, they're running ballot initiatives in Nevada and Arizona. Okay, these are free states we're talking about, and they're running ballot initiatives there. Why? Because if you go to the polls, it's easier to do than going to the legislature. Even in Democrat states like California, we can block most of the bills because these are idiotic proposals. They have no evidence, and when you work hard, you fight hard, we can usually win, even in Democrat states like California. But if you go to the polls, do you really want to put your rights in the hands of your neighbors?
Well, and look, the ability to misrepresent what is in this bill, first of all, that we already know. They're just going to flat out lie about it. And just like what Obama's doing today, you've got the President of the United States who's just announced, he's warning you, I'm coming for your Second Amendment. I'm going to come forward in a way that is probably unconstitutional, and I don't give a damn what you think. And I dare the pansy Republicans to stop me, because we all know they won't.
Well, and the Republicans, they've got to step up to the plate here this year. And they like to talk about the Second Amendment in their party platform, but, they really need to step up here. And frankly, pro-gun Democrats, look, it's time to pick a side. If you care about civil rights, then, there may be a lot of things that you got to hold your nose on both sides of the aisle. But if you care about the Constitution, I'm telling you right now, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, these are not candidates that are going to protect the liberties that we need to even have an open conversation about what kind of policies make sense within a constitutional boundary.
Hey, we got to take a quick break. We're talking with Brandon Combs, Firearms Policy Coalition. We'll take your calls if you have any questions about any new gun laws here in California. 323-746-TALK. There is no calm before this storm. We are in the middle of the maelstrom, and we're talking about, of course, the assault on our fundamental natural rights, civil rights, Second Amendment being one of them. Look, the Constitution does not confer any rights to you. It simply acknowledges existing rights that you derived from the Creator and you lent to the government. It simply acknowledges. Second Amendment is foremost among them, right behind the First. We're talking to Brandon Combs of Firearms Policy Coalition. Brandon, thanks for joining us here on the first working day of the new year.
Well, thanks again for having me on. There's plenty to get to work on in Second Amendment, that's for sure.
Well, absolutely. And there's two things. One, I want to take a question from a caller, but before I do that, I want to ask you. There's a number of laws that are going into effect or have just gone into effect. SB 707 is one of them. And this, I believe it's AB 1014, the gun confiscation law that was passed, I believe, back in 2014, but I don't know why it didn't go into effect now. But these are some pretty crazy assaults on our natural rights right here in California.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. And AB 1014 is sort of a scary bill. The question is, as I've been, sort of talking with folks for the past few months, as everybody is getting ready for this to go into effect on January 1st, the question is really going to come down to enforcement. Who's going to ask for these restraining orders? What are the judges going to do in the process? Are they going to rubber stamp them, or are they going to really require a showing? And so it's really an open question at this point. How are they going to enforce this? If a lot of people go out for whatever reason and try to apply for these gun violence restraining orders against somebody else, then we'll have some data to work with, and we'll be able to track those cases. But, honestly, I got to tell you, I don't think that AB 1014 is going to be used very often, mainly because of the fact that it's another process for the court system. It's another thing for the cops to deal with if it's a law enforcement application. And a lot of people are not going to know that it's available to them. So I don't expect a wave of gun violence restraining orders in the first part of 2016 here.
Well, that's good to hear.
Well, it's at least a silver lining, perhaps, if I'm right. There is one thing, however, that does affect everybody today, and that's SB 707, which went into effect on January 1st. There's over 80,000 Californians with a license to carry, and anybody that's going to schools, taking their kids to school, attending college themselves or whatever, these changes are going to apply to you. First of all, if you have a carry license, you can no longer go onto a school campus. The school grounds is not just the school itself. It could be a walkway in the park. And if it doesn't have a sign, you may not know. So if you're around schools, if you're going to schools, it's not just the buildings. It's actually school grounds. So just be aware of that. You need to know if you need a legal opinion. There are a number of attorneys out there who can do that.
Let me ask you one question about that. Let me ask you one question about that. Sure. This SB 707, which basically applies to K through college. Right. Here's the thing. Are they making this a felony to carry on there with the CCW?
Well, so it wouldn't be necessarily an immediate felony, depending. Look, it gets into really gray territory here because it depends on whether or not the firearm is registered to you. Are you a carry licensee? Are you carrying it concealed? Are you carrying it just... There's a lot of different things that come into play in California criminal law, so it's hard to broad brush.
Okay, so it's not a hard and fast...
It can be a felony to violate the Gun-Free School Zone Act. It's not necessarily a felony. It just depends.
Okay. I was curious about that, and I'm not in the legislature anymore, so I'm not as in tuned as you are. Let me take a quick call. I believe it's Paul from Barstow. Paul.
Hi, Tim. Hey,
welcome to the show.
I got some bad news. Thank you. I got some bad news for you about that San Bernardino shooting. There was a article on Facebook today that somebody called 911 from inside the building and reported it was 3 white men with rifles that were doing the shooting. For real.
Okay, yeah, no,
on Facebook.
Yeah, no, we've heard that story, but in the end, that didn't bear out. I know that was what's his name had that dream that it was Samuel Jackson, the actor, was hoping that it was going to be 3 white males, and unfortunately it wasn't.
Yeah. I think what they were reporting was the SWAT team moving through the building. But anyway, okay, here's one for you. Okay, we're in year 7 of Obama, and it's still Bush 43's fault for everything that's going on. And and Michelle has been an outstanding representative as the First Lady around the world. Oh,
there you go. Did you have a specific question though about firearms?
No, I just wanted to tell you about that stupid thing in San Bernardino. God,
all right.
The things people believe. I don't believe it because I know the Easter Bunny told me it wasn't true. So,
Paul, thanks for the call, and thanks for keeping us up on everything that's going on Facebook. This is definitely going to be one of those years where you're going to see a lot of rumors on Facebook about our Second Amendment rights as well. And of course, we will continue to bring you experts like Brandon Combs. And Brandon, give out your website, because you guys are hip deep in this fight to defend the Second Amendment. So we want all of our listeners to support you. And I told everybody I'm going to ask one thing. Your New Year's resolution, you're going to become a member of Firearms Policy Coalition. You're going to support the NRA, and you're going to get into the fight and financially support the fight against this ballot initiative here in California.
Well, you know what? I appreciate that, Tim. And that's the bottom line is there's only 2 things that are going to help us win in 2016. And the bottom line is we need people, we need volunteers, and we need money. This is now politics. It's a big game. It's going to be a massively expensive campaign. Newsom just had $150,000 drop into his anti-gun pack on the New Year's Eve.
Wow!
So, and that's in addition to the $8 million.
Give me your website. How do people donate, and how do people get involved?
You can get involved at stopnewsom.com. That's stopnewsom.com. STOPNEWSOM.com.
Stopnewsom.com, and that's Firearms Policy Coalition. Brandon Combs, thanks for joining us, Brandon.
Thanks, Tim.
And Godspeed in this great fight. We will be right back with more of your calls. Hey, if you're just tuning in, you have found your way to the Radio Free California Network. And I am your host, Tim Donnelly, former California State Assemblyman and radio governor here in the state of California. You might wish that I was the real governor, but you have one, as you heard in the previous segment. Gavin Newsom, lieutenant governor now, who wishes to replace Jerry Brown. And if you thought Jerry Brown was bad, Gavin Newsom is leading and trying to make a name for himself by getting a ballot initiative that would essentially do a backdoor assault on the Second Amendment by going after ammunition. It would require you, I mean, get this. You've already been through the ringer. And you know what I'm talking about if you bought a gun recently. And if you did, I would love to hear your experience, especially if you went to Turner's, because I got to tell you, I don't know how they cope with all the information and the bad news they have to deliver. I wonder if they have training sessions where they just walk you through grief counseling, because half the time you have to say no to people. You have to deny them what they want to do or delay them, and all in order to be compliant, because you got to be on the up and up and compliant because we're law abiding. And that's where they always get us. Because those of us who are law abiding citizens, we're law abiding. Doesn't mean we're perfect. Yeah, sometimes we speed, sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we're not perfect in our compliance with all these laws and regulations half the time, because we don't even know that they passed something new. And of course, ignorance of the law is no excuse. But can you imagine? I mean, it's bad enough that when you go to the gun store, when you go to Turner's, you got to get a number. You got to wait in line because it takes time to go through all the paperwork just to buy a gun. Now think if you got to do all that just to buy a brick of 22. You just want to go in and get some 9mm. You just want to go get some 45 hollow points. You know, your anti-terrorist prevention. And you got to go through a background check. Are you kidding me? And I was thinking about this. And it got me really ticked off because I started thinking, can you imagine if they held illegal aliens to the same standard and actually enforced our laws, refused to let, first of all, anyone come across the border illegally, built physical barrier, put enough personnel, and developed the same will that they have to violate your rights to secure our freaking border? Number one. Number two, they'd have to go to all the job sites and workplaces and do enforcement and take it seriously, the same way they do at gun stores. And by the way, if you're an FFL dealer, the federal government can come in at any moment without warning, and they can check and see how you're doing things. Now, just think if the same federal government, the one that is charged in the Constitution in Article 4, Section 4, with securing our border, just think if they went out and demanded that every single workplace be checked, that E-Verify be enforced, that jobs be set aside for those who are legally able to work. That means, hey, if you came here as a resident alien, meaning you have a green card, you might get to work. And you might actually get paid a decent wage. And, oh, by the way, if you're a natural-born American citizen or a naturalized American citizen, those jobs would be available to you as well. And all of a sudden, it would change everything because wages would go up because there'd be fewer people to pick from in the workforce. And yes, I've heard all the complaints about how white people won't work on farms and they won't do dirty work. You know what? This country was built by Americans doing the dirty work and then figuring out smarter, better, faster ways to do it. And when labor is not so cheap, then you value those dollars, and pretty soon you figure out more efficient ways that are more humane to your workforce and how to do things. That's just the bottom line. That's called progress. But you don't have progress absent a set of rules that everybody has to follow. And our immigration laws are a joke. Obama has eviscerated them, not through the Congress, but through executive order. And not even that. He has put down dictates with his appointees, such as Jay Johnson, who is the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, which is a joke. They don't secure the homeland. They haven't secured the border. They haven't enforced immigration laws. They haven't used their power, the power we lent them, to keep jihadists like the jihadi bride of Syed Farouk. They haven't used that power to protect Americans. They haven't used it to protect our communities and to protect the sovereignty of this nation, to protect the Constitution of this country as they swore an oath. No. They're busy spying on you, trying to figure out if you might own an illegal firearm. And you know what? When I see those priorities, they are so fixated on legal, lawful, law-abiding Americans and violating your rights over and over and over again. It's almost like rape. And I'm at a point of just telling the government, F you. Go pound sand. You don't belong here. Get out of my face and get out of my space. Go do your effing job down at the border. Go secure the border and then get back to me now that you want to get all involved in enforcing the Second Amendment. Or I'm sorry, not enforcing it, protecting it, actually violating it and trying to make examples and make criminals out of law-abiding Americans. I mean, how insulting is it to have a Marxist progressive like Gavin Newsom, who thinks it's his right to make you get a background check when you go to buy bullets for your gun? And you know what? See, they think that's the way, we're going to catch the criminals, because then when they buy bullets, they're going to have to go and get a background check. Well, I got news for you, Gavin. The criminals are going to do the same thing that they do when they buy their guns. They're going to buy them out of the back trunk of a car. They're going to buy them in somebody's drug house. And yes, there will be a black market for ammunition. They'll go to Arizona and other states and they'll bring them in. And then you'll have to try to pass some law. Surprise, surprise, there's going to be a new law and you're going to get pulled over and your car's going to be searched. And if you happen to cross into the state of California from Nevada or Arizona and you have ammunition in the car, it'll be like cigarettes where you didn't pay the tax. And now all of a sudden you're considered a criminal and treated like a criminal, all because of what? Because they won't actually throw the criminals in jail. And I mean violent criminals. I think the only people we ought to go after are violent criminals. Everything else ought to be civil. If you're one of these white-collar criminals, why the hell don't they just make you work for the rest of your life to repay whatever money you stole from people instead of sticking you in jail? We have way too many people incarcerated who could be productive and be on the paying side of the ledger. But there's this massive prison industrial complex that is one of these behemoth special interests that doesn't really care. They just want to make sure more people are incarcerated so that there's job security. And I'm sorry, I'm a law and order guy all the way. But there needs to be a limit to how many laws and how many and to why we put people in jail. If you're willing to commit a violent crime, I want your ass in jail, and I don't want you to get out, ever. And then we don't have to worry about violating my rights when it comes to firearms or ammunition, because your ass is going to be in jail, and we don't have to deal with you victimizing innocent people. But see, the government, there's a prohibition against double jeopardy. You can't be tried twice for the same crime. But whenever there's a criminal act or a mass murder event, like the massacre in San Bernardino, the government takes potential victims and then tries to render them powerless by making it even more difficult and more expensive for them to exercise the only salvation, which is to buy a gun, buy ammunition, and learn how to use it. I don't know, call me crazy. But to me, there ought to be a prohibition on the government penalizing, the double penalty of insulting the memories of those who were slaughtered by, instead of actually going after the jihadists, instead of making the country more secure at our borders and through our immigration enforcement, coming after our guns. Sorry, I don't usually get this frustrated, but there is something you can do. January 16th, make sure that you are signed up. We have a link up at timdonnellyshow.com. Also, Apple Valley Gun Club. I'm going. I signed my two sons up. We're going. And we're going to spend some time learning and communing with fellow Americans. And I'm looking forward to that Saturday. If you're not signed up, spots are going quick. I got to tell you that. Anyway, I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, I'll take your calls. 323-746-TALK. Hey, welcome back to the show. We're going to go straight to the phone lines. Give me your first name and city, please. You're live on air. Give me your first name and city, please.
Hey, are you there?
Yes.
Hey, I don't want to go on the air. I just wanted to share a tasty tidbit of information, and I don't want to burn anybody or anything like that. But I just wanted to share something with you. And then
let me warn you. You're live on air, because that's all we do here.
Yeah. Okay.
So don't give out whatever names.
No.
Okay.
I won't. I'll just.
That's all right. Did you want to say anything about the Second Amendment?
Yeah, it's a great thing, but I'll tell you this. Anonymously, that I do know that Kamala Harris recently got her CCW.
Oh, that's just priceless. That's priceless. She wants to
in the LA area.
Wow. She wants to take away your right to keep and bear arms, but the hypocrisy knows no bounds.
Isn't that special?
Wow. Well, you don't need to give out any background intel on that, but yeah, whatever else you want to tell me, you can always email me at tim@timdonnellyshow.com. We try to keep it easy and simple, but thanks for the call and thanks for listening.
Okay, man, we'll see you.
You got it. Oh, that's priceless. What's good enough for her ain't good enough for us, I see. Let's go to Mike in Wrightwood. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. You know, it's really frustrating in this country right now, state laws, federal laws, and I mean, especially for a lot of the vets that are out there, because we see laws that, you know, they want to make and tell us that that's what we fought for, that's what we went over there for, we give everybody the rights to vote, freedom of speech, you know, the Second Amendment rights and all this stuff, and then you take them away from us. And then when we try to ask what we can do about it, we get told things like, go hire a lawyer. Well, how do you expect a disabled combat soldier to hire a lawyer when he makes $35,000 a year, and anybody with a, you know, key for a brain in law knows that you file several motions and you bankrupt them. And I just got off the phone today with Congress and asked them, I got a judge in New Mexico that's violating federal law telling me that I can't claim support as payments on my taxes, and she doesn't have to either, which violates federal law. So the IRS told me that if I don't do it, I could get in trouble by them, but I got a state judge telling me that if I do it, I can get in trouble from him. So I asked them, what do I do? This guy's violating federal law, and there needs to be an oversight into people that violate federal law. It's like, well, complain to your state. Well, the state knows it's doing it. There are several states that are doing the same thing, violating federal law, and nothing's being done. And if we complain to a state about a state law, especially in New Mexico, one of the most corrupt in the union, we're not going to get a response back. But to be told that we need to get lawyers But I mean, it just amazes us. A lot of us vets that we look at what goes on in this world, and if somebody goes out there and pulls a kid down on a chair, they get 5,000 lawyers at their doorstep wanting to help them out for their civil rights. When is people going to stand up for us veterans and start helping us with our civil rights? Because we can't afford lawyers either, but we don't have a stockpile of them out there. They've already taken away people like me, my gun, or my right to go get a gun for absolutely no reason, other than somebody made a false accusation, but they still haven't cleared it off the system. So we're losing our rights left and right, and all they ever tell us is go get a lawyer that they know we can't afford. That's not the way our country's supposed to work.
Mike, I'm going to put it out there that if you're an attorney and you want to help veterans like Mike, contact me, Tim at timdonnellyshow.com, and I'll put you in touch with Mike, because Mike, I agree with you. This is BS. And what happens when you have power is you build a moat around yourself. You understand this is part of war. And once you have that power, you want to keep and hold on to that power through any and all means necessary. And the bottom line is that we have a government that has become expert at controlling people. And a lot of people aren't even aware of it.
I got something funny for you, though. Here's what I was told by the congressman's office today. They can't do anything to pass laws or bring lawyers in or, things like that would help, or they could give any kind of legal advice because they'd be subject to being sued for malpractice, things like that. And they need to make sure that the money that they take from the constituents is used properly. And it's like, I got to tell you, man, if I was a little bit older, I probably would have had a heart attack laughing my ass off. I'm sorry about that. But, I mean, the reality is for them to make a statement like that, I mean, let's be real. We got a treadmill and we got a lobster on it running. And they're worried about lawsuits or worried about their responsibilities and constituents' money.
And these are the same. These are the same congressmen that voted to bring 300,000 more Tafshin Malik jihadi brides in here, to bring in more jihadists like Syed Farouk, and we don't know how many of them will ultimately wind up being jihadists, but they voted for that. They vote continuously. They even admit it sometimes to, oh, well, you know what? I wait for the special interest to tell me how to vote. And they have the gall to tell you that they're concerned about helping out a constituent. I mean, I understand the legality of it, Mike, but there's a point at which you just have to treat people with respect and tell them the truth, the hard truth. And fight as hard as you can for them. Bottom line, if you want to help Mike in his situation, Mike is a veteran. Mike is somebody that has stood up for this country, stood up for me, stood up for you. If you have those legal skills, send me an email, Tim at timdonnellyshow.com. Mike, thank you again for your service. We've got to take a break here. Always good to talk to you.
Thanks, man. Have a good day.
Be right back. If for any reason you ever forget, the left loves to use coercion. Case in point, Obamacare. 2 years after the so-called Affordable Care Act became law, requiring most Americans to buy health insurance, whether they like it or not, taking away their freedom of choice. Yeah, the left loves to do that, except when it comes to abortion. It's the only thing where they will protect freedom of choice. When it comes to what kind of gun you want, how many bullets, what kind of bullets, what kind of features you want on your firearms, they are looking to shut off every choice you could possibly make. But when it comes to, healthcare, same thing. Obama said, yeah, you can choose your doctor. Lie. Said it wouldn't be available to illegals. Lie. That's happening right here and right now in California. They're making the California care. But by the time this legislative session is over, they will have legalized that. Jerry Brown will sign it, and this state will go deeper and deeper into debt, and forget about any chance of any enforcement of our immigration laws. California is making this place a Disneyland for illegals, a wonderland, nirvana. I don't know what's the right word? I think I'm missing. I don't think I said it strongly enough, but they have no problem if you think you're going to sidle out of your responsibility to the community, to raise the village, basically to raise the people who won't work for a living, in order to provide better health care for them than you can afford for yourself. They use the IRS, and they have no problem using bigger guns and putting a gun to your head and saying, you will pay this or else. And I'll be very curious as we go through the tax season here to hear from you how much your penalty is if you've opted to not participate in the forced subsidization of other people's health care at your expense. I would love to hear your experience. But right now, I just want to give you a little taste. I mentioned before that Bill Clinton is out campaigning for Hillary. And look, Bill Clinton is a better campaigner than Barack Obama, than almost everyone. I don't know about Trump. Trump's pretty. He's got charm and he's got a stage presence, but Bill Clinton's is different. He connects with every person pretty much that he comes in contact with and sucks them into his little sphere. But sometimes it's not always with charm and you know, him biting that lower lip and saying, I feel your pain. Sometimes it's with force, and it is blatant and brutish and downright despicable behavior that you hear. And what I'm referring to, there's a guy that does a radio show in Tel Aviv, Aaron Klein. He gets all these people to call into his show. We played you before the interview from Juanita Broderick, and if we've got it, I want to play you a clip from his interview with Paula Jones. And if you don't know who she is, she was the poster child for a while of Clinton's extracurricular activities, and that provoked one of Clinton's handlers to say, well, you know, you drag a $100 bill through a trailer park and it's amazing what will turn up, referring to Paula Jones, who was a government employee. She thought she was going to get a better job by going upstairs to the governor's suite and having a private meeting with him. Boy, was she ever surprised. Check it out.
So without further ado, you all know what is coming right now, and that is, she's on the line with us. I would say the most famous sex accuser of all of them. She's a household name around the world, in fact, including here, by the way, where I'm broadcasting from Israel, the beaches of Tel Aviv, Israel. And I'm talking about, thank you for joining us, Paula Jones. By the way, she's a household name on the one hand, but I have to say that for people my age and younger who didn't really pay so careful attention to the Monica Lewinsky scandal, which was prompted by Paula Jones, actually, for them, they're just hearing a lot of this for the first time. So first of all, Paula Jones, welcome, absolutely welcome to Aaron Klein Investigative Radio.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. So, okay, first of all, what I wanted to do, certainly for those who are not so familiar with the lurid details, to put it mildly, I want to go back and review, and feel free to say whatever you want, to not tell whatever parts of the story you want, because I know that for many people it's very sensitive, even traumatic, to recount events that happen. So I'm just going to go where you go. I don't want you to say anything that you're not comfortable saying. But Paula Jones, take us back, before we go forward to current affairs and Hillary and Trump and all of that. Take us back to May 8th, 1991. This was when Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas. You were a 24-year-old clerk with the Arkansas Industrial Development Commission, if I have that right. And actually, like so many of the other female victims, alleged victims of Bill Clinton, you were young. You were kind of getting involved in this case, the Industrial Development Commission, but he pried on you. Tell us what happened? How did you get into his hotel room at the Excelsior Hotel in Little Rock? How did that happen?
I was working, and my boss had asked me if I would like to work the registration desk out at the ballroom area at the Excelsior Hotel, and she asked if I would like to pass out name tags and information and stuff to the different people that were attending the conference. So I agreed to do that. My boss had asked me to do that. And that's why that put me there at the hotel during the time, because Bill was going to be speaking there.
So did he spot you out right away, and did he personally invite you up to his hotel room? And by the way, just for a minute, I should say that before the air we talked, the cell phone is not so great that you're talking on, but we're working here on our side on the audio, so we hope to get the best quality shortly, but this is what the cell phone is for now. So, and apparently this is how we have to talk to you. So, Paula Jones, did he spot you out?
Yeah, we were sitting out front, and obviously they were waiting on Bill Clinton to come and speak at the conference. And so we were sitting out in the hallway area where there wasn't anybody actually, because the conference was going on, and they were waiting on Bill Clinton. So he came up, and then here comes a barrage, of reporters behind him. I never had seen the governor before in person, ever. And just a few times maybe on TV. And he was in front of us, and he kept looking over at me at the table. And that's how I first noticed, him over there. He kept looking over at us, and me and my coworker would kind of giggle and say, "What's he looking at? What's he looking at?" But that was the first encounter, was him speaking to the reporters in front of our table.
So he was looking at you, kind of flirting with you, and then did he send one of his, security men to get you up there, or did he personally approach you? How did that happen?
He wasn't really flirting with me. He was just looking at us, quite a bit. And from what I understand now, that I look back, he had a wandering eye, and he would look around and looking for women. Well, that's what he was doing as girls at the table. So what happened was his state trooper was, because he was there in the building, his state trooper was in Ferguson, and he would hang out with me and my coworker by the table. And he is the one who eventually took me up and said that the governor would like to meet with me. And I said, why would he want to meet with me? He said, it's okay, because he does this all the time. So I didn't think anything was wrong with that. Well, no, and I'm admitting it. I did not. I had no intention of the meeting, or, you know what I'm saying? I didn't feel like there was anything wrong with my coworker.
Right. Also he's a very powerful man. He's the governor. He's asking you to a meeting. Who would think twice about that? So then,
I was excited.
You were excited?
I was excited that he wanted to meet with me. Yeah. I thought, well, why would he want to meet with me? And so me and the co-worker were saying, well, maybe he's got a better job for me available or something. And she said, don't forget me either. And of course we're going to think about what else would we have in mind. I had no thoughts of something bad going to happen to me. A state police with a gun, a security guy, was going to take me up there. And he said, okay, we do this all the time. I thought it was just a general meeting, a meeting that he meets different people. What would be wrong with that? That's what I thought.
Okay, so then he gets you up to his hotel room, and, on the one hand, I absolutely don't want you to recount anything that's painful or uncomfortable for you. On the other hand, I think
we're going to take a quick break, really, and when we come back, we're going to find out what happened in that hotel room with the former president, who is now going to campaign for his wife on women's rights. See, the left does not like to have the light shined on their proclivities. They love to shine them on Republicans, on right-wingers, especially if they claim to be Christians. But see, I want to make one thing perfectly clear. I wish I could do Obama's voice. That would be so awesome. Maybe let me make one thing perfectly clear. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Hillary Clinton. Haven't been with her in years. My focus is not on Bill Clinton's affair with Monica Lewinsky. Could care less. That's his own personal problem, and it's her personal problem. It is not the country's personal problem, even though it did happen in the Oval Office, and even though there were some abuses in terms of how it all transpired and whatnot. But to me, the most significant incident with Bill Clinton took place long before he got in the White House. And there were multiple of them, but you've got here's Paula Jones. She's a government employee. She's being asked to be at a hotel. It turns out it was all set up for a reason. Then she's escorted up to the room by his security detail so he can assault, grope, molest, whatever. Excuse me. But in other cases, like with Juanita Broderick, as you heard, it was rape. A rape occurred. He used force and violence, bit her lip, and then, of course, then came the cover-up. And you ask anybody, it's always the cover-up. Ask Hillary Clinton. Ask leftists. The cover-up in Watergate was much worse than any of the alleged crimes. So that is my focus with bringing this up, because Hillary has made herself the champion of women who have been sexually assaulted. The only problem with that, when you put yourself out there as a champion, and she has defended and protected her husband, she has gone out personally and hired private investigators. She has been personally involved in the intimidation process to keep victims quiet. Well, you don't get to be the champion of women who've been sexually assaulted and the victimizer of women who've been sexually assaulted. And so her secret weapon could backfire. Here's more of the interview with Aaron Klein and Paula Jones.
Continuing right now with Paula Jones. I will be taking phone calls later, by the way, at 877-970-2999. But right now, Paula, I am on the gripping my chair here at the edge of the seat. Tell us what happens next. You're in the room with the governor of Arkansas, future president of the United States. There's a state trooper, apparently, outside of the hotel room. You're in there. You had no idea, you said, what was coming. Tell us what happened next.
Well, then we got over closer to the door where there was one of the couches at, and we were talking again about maybe political stuff and maybe what they were doing, because we absolutely have nothing in common. I mean, there's nothing we could possibly talk about other than what they had been doing with the state, in his job and all that. And the next thing, he pulled down his pants, sat on the couch, and he was fondling himself, and he asked him to kiss it.
Mm-hmm. He asked you to kiss it. So what did you do?
And I jumped up, and because I was leaning like on the side of the couch arm, the big arm of it, I was kind of leaned up against that, and I jumped over, and I said, "No, I'm not that kind of girl, and I need to be leaving immediately." And so then, of course, he was embarrassed. He turned deep red, and he jumped out and he pulled his pants up, and I went up to the door, and I'm trying to get out, and then he momentarily put his hand on the door so I couldn't completely get it open, and he said, "You're a smart girl, keep this between ourselves."
He said, "You are smart. Let's keep this between ourselves." What does that mean? Did you take that at the time as a threat?
Don't tell nobody.
Did you think he was threatening you?
He said, "Do not tell nobody." Well, of course. I mean, he didn't want nobody to know.
So
I'm sure he's done this 100 times or more. Probably, who knows how many times he's done it by the time
of course.
And then when I walked out, the state police, he had a smirk on his face.
the state policeman who was protecting the room while he was trying to sexually assault you had a smirk on his face.
Yes, and I just kept going and walking and past. Mm-hmm.
You left. You walked past the state trooper. Did you tell anybody? I understand you told your sisters and your mother. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
But why?
I also told.
Mm-hmm.
I told that my coworker, who knew that something was wrong with me when I came downstairs, and I told when I got back to the desk, and I told her that he had made a pass at me, and that was all I told her. I didn't get into details or nothing, and she was really shocked, of course. And then we were allowed to leave at that time, so we split ways. Left, never talked to her again about it. And I think maybe some time had went on. I did not tell my boyfriend at the time because I knew he would be so mad. There's no telling what he would have done. And so I just did not tell him. I was actually living with my first husband at that time, but we had not gotten married yet.
You were living with...
Anyway.
What about... I'm curious because you were in the room. I could see how you would feel very trapped, very intimidated. Yeah. When a very powerful man told you, looked into your eyes pretty much, and basically, I would say threatened you. He told you, you're a smart girl. Let's keep this between ourselves. Yeah. Did this experience have any lasting emotional, psychological impact on you? How did it affect you?
Well, it always does, and it's always like, kind of like the victim thinking, what did we do wrong? And especially when it did come out, because I did not ever bring it out publicly, ever. When I say I told people, I told my mom a little bit without getting into details, because my mother was I respected my mom, and she was a bit sweet Christian lady.
It is shocking to believe that this is the behavior of the husband of the woman who wants to be your champion on women's rights and the next president of the United States. I don't think we're going to let her take our gun rights away. Anyway, we will talk more about it when we get back. I wish we could get back in the black, not just financially, but in terms of our rights, which are constantly under assault. And I've been playing you a little bit of insight into Bill Clinton's character, his activities, extracurricular activities, and particularly the abuse of power with the question, do you want the wife of this man, the wife who defended his behavior, the wife who went out and went after with a vengeance the women who were sexually assaulted by her husband? There's no other way to put it. You can say allegedly all you want, but when it comes to Juanita Broderick, she has stated straight out, she's done interviews with NBC, that he raped her, and this is a person who was a supporter. This was not some random Republican, but meanwhile, we're listening to an interview by Aaron Klein of the Aaron Klein Show, which is heard on the weekends. He's out of Tel Aviv. Some great stories he picks up, and this is Paula Jones in her own words.
Continuing right now with Paula Jones. Paula, you what started as you said, other people talking about you, other people coming to you, and then you eventually went public with a lawsuit. Did you know what was coming next? Did you understand how big it would be when you sue the sitting president of the United States? Eventually, of course, it led to his impeachment, at least in the House, of a sitting president. Did you know what was coming? Did you expect that and all of the media attention?
Yes, but, first of all, he did it to himself.
Mm-hmm.
I
That's right.
Do it to him. So, but yeah, I was surprised. I didn't have any idea what I was getting myself into, when I first talked to that attorney. And, kind of got legs of its own, and I somehow got in the middle of it. That's the way I can look at it. But what he did to me was wrong, and what he has done to many other women now that I know it was very wrong. And whatever happened, you know, I'm just surprised he was still able to be our president, to be an acting president. I mean, you know, he was impeached, but it wasn't like he didn't leave office. He wasn't fired from his job. There would be a lot of other CEOs and different people that would be completely fired from their jobs if they were accused of this type of situation. But no, he was still allowed to run the country, and some people just kind of almost disregarded the fact that what he did to all these women, and I still don't understand that. But you know, I was like a lot of people say, well, he was exonerated. No, he wasn't exonerated. Judge Susan Weber Wright threw out the case on lack of evidence. Well, the Supreme Court did not feel that way. They felt that I had plenty of evidence. But I won that 9-0, that I could take him to trial. And then it was going to go back into the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. And during that process, between those two, is when Bill Clinton settled. If he had felt like he won when it was already thrown out of court, by Susan Weber Wright, then because of lack of evidence, then why would he settle with me? He settled because he knew what was going to happen after the went to trial and all the evidence was shown and proven, and probably lots of other women that, of course, I didn't even know about would have came out at that point in time as well. So a guilty man is not going to settle a case.
And we're going to go, in fact, to those women next.
I mean, an innocent man, excuse me, I mean an innocent man. It's not going to settle a case when it's already thrown out of court. I mean, that's ludicrous, you know?
Oh yeah. So, Paula Jones, I want to ask you, I want to bring it to the current, to 2016, you know, it's now officially actually 2016 presidential campaign. Actually, if you put your name, Paula Jones, right now in a Google News search, you'll see that you're already being brought up left and right. Because why? Because, well, Hillary has accused Donald Trump of having a penchant for sexism. And she says that the Republicans are waging a war on women. War on women. So first of all, what do you think of Hillary Clinton, who has been accused by several of the women in the past of knowing about affairs, of enabling Bill, of even some of the women say waging a war against them? What do you think about Hillary Clinton claiming other people are waging a war on women? She's trying to make women into an issue in 2016. What are your thoughts on Hillary and women's issues?
Well, you know what? Hillary is only out for herself, for money and for power, and she cares nothing about women at all. Because if she did care about women, she would care about conservative women, and she would care about the liberal women. But it's only the women that she tries to care about are the ones that can help her agenda. And it's really, really sad that she is using that to gain popularity or whatever. I don't know a woman. I don't see how women would even be able to trust her with the man who is her husband, who has abused and harassed and other things to women, and she knew about it. And, you know, she's always been the kind of woman that says, oh, she's a strong woman, and she's not going to be like Penny, one that says, stand by your man. Well, yeah, she stood by her man all right, and she allowed her husband to abuse women, harass women, possibly other things that she's done wrong to women, that he did wrong to women, and she allowed it to happen. As a matter of fact, she would go out and she would try to discredit these women, including me. She would try to, and called us the bimbo election.
Right.
You know, with bimbos, because of what her husband did to us, but she didn't believe us, none of us women. But now she's going to say what she did about Donald Trump.
Well, but wait a minute. Actually, do you know that Hillary Clinton made a campaign ad where she said that female victims of sexual assault have the right to be believed? She actually said that. And then she tweeted that female victims of sexual assault have the right to be believed. So do you think that when Hillary Clinton claims that female victims of sexual assault have the right to be believed, well, what do you say to that?
She's such a liar, and she's so two-faced. That's amazing, too. I never was contacted by her, not one time, and asked, and apologized for what her husband did to me, and the other women. Instead, we were told that we're not worthy, we're white trash, we're bimbos, drag a $100 bill through a trailer park,
right,
and see what you come up with. And she wanted to discredit us. They would send people out to try to do that. And, how dare her? You know what? She don't care nothing about women. Because if she did, she would believe what I had to say. She would believe what the other women had to say. Did all us women just make this stuff up about her poor husband? No, we didn't. Bill Clinton did it to himself. Bill Clinton is the one who's been out doing that. You can turn to Arkansas and ask so many people, random people on the street, of what they think about Bill Clinton or things they've heard about Bill Clinton, and they will tell you some shocking things, because I've heard some shocking things. And it's amazing that she pretends not to know anything about it. She knows about it, but you know what? He helps her, she helps him, and they're a perfect pair for, committing all of this stuff and lies, and cheating people and just running over people for their agenda, for their power that they got to have. And it's a sickness, I think, on both parts.
I heard you say that Hillary Clinton never called to apologize. Do you believe that Hillary owes you an apology, Paula Jones?
You know what? If she believes in women, any women, she needs to do a public something or other against all the women that have come out and said publicly what her husband has done to them. Yeah, she does. I believe she does. She's running for the president of the United States. And so, is she running for all of us, or just for certain people that are for her agenda? For people that agree with what she has and what she wants to do. She needs to support all of us, and she needs to believe us if she says that she believes women that claim sexual harassment and they have a right to be heard. Well, I wasn't. I didn't have a right to be heard, obviously. I had to be scrutinized in the media, and I knew that I had God on my side. He knew what happened in the room. Bill Clinton knew what happened. He was never going to admit to it. Well, the state trooper, he knew just a little bit of what happened, but it was outside the door, But you know what? It's really a sad day if Hillary gets president, because she is allowed her husband to get by with this type of stuff and this action. Why does he have a right to be back in the White House, the people's house? Why is he allowed to be back in there with the track record that he has, and his wife, and the lying that she does, and how she tried to discredit all of these women that her husband abused and sexually harassed?
She's a cover-up artist, is what she really is. And Paula Jones said it very well. We are going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll talk about this in the final segment here on the Tim Donnelly Show. After hearing the abuse that Paula Jones, among many other women, suffered, and when I say abuse, I'm talking about the abuse of power. A man who brings women, using state employees to bring women to him so that he can abuse them. Wasn't even consensual. It wasn't as if, like under JFK, where he actually was having some kind of a love affair going on, and they secreted the likes of Marilyn Monroe into the White House. This is not that by any stretch. This is a man who randomly spotted women, sent his goons, his state-paid goons, to go get them. Shame on them for ever participating in such a thing. Drags him up to the room. Then he exposes himself. He gets rejected, and he has varying responses to the rejection. Just by putting his hand on the door, keeping Paula Jones falsely imprisoned. That's kidnapping and false imprisonment. And even if it's only for a second. So you're dealing with a man that has no respect for women. You're dealing with a man that has been accused at the highest levels by serious people, members of his support team, members of his society, the high society in Arkansas, of rape. And this is not one accusation. It is multiple. There's entire books written about it. And hey, people are starting to ask, even at CNN. There was a host who said, well, geez, with Bill Cosby being on the front pages of magazines and questions being asked and investigations going forward and all kinds of scrutiny, why Bill Cosby and not Bill Clinton? And see, this is where the hypocrisy of the left stream media is in full view. Because Bill Cosby is not in a position to help the leftist agenda. See, they don't care about women who are abused by their leftist idols like Bill Clinton. That's okay. It's okay for Bill Clinton to rape women. It's okay for Bill Clinton to abuse his power. It's okay for Bill Clinton to get his wife, Hillary, to cover it up, to get an entire team of lawyers and PIs to intimidate and terrify the victims while pretending to be their champion. And I just, women are first of all, women are too smart for this. In this day and age, they have access, just like all of us, to the internet, and it's all over the place. The information is free-flowing. And the fact that Hillary participated in the bimbo eruption squads, as they called them, to squash and quash and intimidate anyone and terrify, I mean, literally to the point of threatening people's pets, and one person's pet disappeared and was killed, and the PI took credit for it. Who knows if they really did it, but I mean, that's the kind of stuff they were doing to women and to keep them from talking. Well, Paula Jones made a good point. If you were in any other line of work and these accusations came out, you'd lose your job. So I can't see America putting this woman in the White House. I know we will have a woman president, and I think it'll be a great thing. I think a woman can be just as good or better a president than a man. Certainly, almost anyone on the face of the earth could be a better president than Barack Obama. I don't care what color they are. I don't care what gender they are. I just care about whether they have some respect for the Constitution and some love for our country. You know, I think it would be nice if instead of having all these lawyers and these people who are elitists who think they're so great and they have all the answers, it'd be nice to have somebody who just tells it like it is. Somebody who's just an average, ordinary person. Somebody who's like one of us. Who just every day get up and try to keep the government out of our lives. I mean, instead of using the government to save the world, which you can't do anyway, wouldn't it be nice to just have the government out of your way? I mean, just imagine you get up one day and the government isn't harassing you. You're not having to put up with obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, tax after tax after tax, fee after fee after fee, new law, new regulation, new opportunity as a small business owner to get sued, new opportunity to get harassed by the IRS, new opportunity to learn what a nightmare it is to exercise your Second Amendment. Just think, if for just one day the government would be pushed back up against the wall and handcuffed and shackled and told hands off. That's the kind of president I want. And I think that's the kind of president America needs. Somebody who will restore our freedom and protect our God-given rights.
Can you
Want to say thank you to Sean McNeil, Chief Engineer, all of our sponsors, and of course, you. God bless you and Godspeed. Tim Donnelly Show, out.